order for us to truly achieve climate solutions and put in place climate solutions, you and I have to be able to look at each other, and we have to be able to understand that we come from very diverse backgrounds with different lived experiences. And I need to, and you need to develop the self-awareness to be able to understand, in this encounter, am I coming from a position of privilege? Have I had experiences, lived experiences, realities that has shaped the way that I view the world that may be different from this person that I'm talking to? Because this is at the heart of our climate solutions.
Hi, I'm Paola Espitia with Ola'pi Creative. Welcome to Conversations with Paola, a weekly video series exploring what it takes to make change. We share unfiltered, intimate, and inspiring conversations with wave makers in blue spaces around the world.
This is it. This moment is the bit that we can influence. It's dreams and goals are really important, but the bit that where we make a change is actually in the moment now. So that really matters to me, being aware of the ripple effect of our actions.
That's the epitome of what the ocean is to me. It's just like my heart and soul, and it's love and it's connection.
It was something that was going to stick with him for quite a while.
I mean, read lots of books. Books will motivate you. Experience things. Experiences will motivate you. Watch interviews like this.
And I have to say, being able to go out and make an impact.
How many people do you interact with every day? You can be a change maker for all of those people.
Now it's time for us to say, okay, everybody's had their chance. Now it's time to say, we're ready. We're going to kick it off, and we're going to start making our beach the most environmentally friendly.
And we love water. We love you. Thank you.
Hi there, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Paola. I'm your host, Paola Espitia, media consultant with Ola'pi Creative. And welcome to the show today. We have a really interesting guest that I'm really looking forward for you all to meet. And before we dive into meeting this week's guest, I wanted to take a moment to share with you all that I have been super excited and super inspired by a course I've been taking all about storytelling. Most importantly, it has inspired me to give back. And so I'm really excited to announce that we are going to be offering a free storytelling webinar for all of you who are interested in learning more about crafting really clear messaging, maybe fine-tuning that elevator pitch and using story to do that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring on today's guest on Conversations with Paola. Here she is. And welcome, Miss Nikita.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you so much for making the time for us today and sharing your story. Welcome.
Thank you. It's so good to be here. I love it.
I know, it's super exciting. I love getting a chance to know you. But before we continue, let's make sure that our audience knows who you are. So if you could take a minute to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your water story.
Absolutely. Oh, this is such an amazing story, and I love sharing it with people. So my water story starts in more of a mythical realm. So indulge me, if you will. And let's dive deep into the ocean queendom. And in our ocean queendom, okay, that was
a beautiful really background music, really.
I realized that was actually me. So sorry about that. So yes, diving into our ocean queendom, there is Queen Mermaid. Queen Mermaid lives in the depth of the ocean. And one day she was really concerned, and she called all her advisors together, all the cephalopods, and she's like, there's something that we have to do because Mother Earth is dying. And so Queen Mermaid talked to her advisors, And they all decided that she had to go up to Earth to talk to the humans because they forgot that they were and are nature. And because of this, they have been living this lifestyle that's completely destroyed and disconnected, and they're killing Mother Earth and also killing themselves. They don't realize it. And so Queen Mermaid shapeshifts into a human and is born in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, to an Irish mother and a Bahamian father, 2 islanders from different islands in the Atlantic Ocean, and Nikita Shiel-Rolle is born. And then so Nikita spends 30 years traveling around the world to coastal communities, just understanding how people from all around the world live with and connect to the ocean and to nature. And settling here in the island originally known as Guanima. This is the name that the indigenous people who lived in the Bahamian Islands called the island that I'm on now, which we call it Cat Island. So I'm calling in from Cat Island, the Bahamas. But so Queen Mermaid, upon 30 years or so of exploring the world, realized that her mission was to help spread ocean love and help connect everyone with Mama Ocean. And so this is what I do as Eagle Grey Empress. The ocean literally runs through my veins. I'm an oceanpreneur and founder and CEO of Young Marine Explorers and the Cat Island Conservation Institute. And we are, the nonprofit organization is focused on driving and creating climate resilient communities, really engaging and working with communities hand in hand as co-researchers as we are understanding what our needs are and how do we create sustainable solutions to address that. I am also owner of Cat Island Mermaid, which is sort of the umbrella of all my oceanpreneur industry. So for example, I have Ocean Soul Farm, which is a new project that I'm working on, but really learning about hydroponics and food security. And then I also am a real estate assistant at H.G. Christie and Christie's International. And I'm in real estate now because as guardians of the planet, I think it's really important for us to lead by example. And that being a guardian of planet ocean looks like many different things. It could mean, choosing to make different choices on how you're spending your money or how you're voting, or it can also mean nurturing a homestead for you. But at the end of the day, it's all about how we connect with ourselves. And it's through spreading ocean love, through mindfulness, reminding people to be kind, that you and we are all brilliant. We all have something talented and important to share with the world. And that by doing it lovingly together, we're creating a more beautiful place. So that is a little bit about me.
Eagle Ray Empress in a nutshell, in a clamshell. Wow, so much amazing work by one single woman. It's super impressive. I really appreciate, we actually got a chance to meet through a mutual friend, Janine Massey, who runs JMM Consulting. And she does such a great job at connecting wave makers together. So big thank you to Janine for always making sure that we stay in the right community, because you really are doing incredible work with that singular mission at the soul of it, which is to be more connected to water in all the ways that we can. Do you think coming from an island culture has a lot to do with where you are now?
Absolutely. Well, you know what's really interesting, because I was born in Canada and I spent my first 7 years, my early childhood was in Toronto until my parents decided to move to the Bahamas. My father's Bahamian. And so our family moved here, and I hated, I just could not, as a 7-year-old, my entire world changed. And it was obviously, like the biggest blessing, because I was able to grow up with the ocean and develop this relationship that completely just fills my soul and enables me to share my talents with the world. And I think the power of the ocean, the power that we individually have with the ocean that many people don't even realize. Like we're water, our planet is water. I mean, water is lifeblood, whether it's fresh or salt water, it is who we are.
1,000%. I mean, I so very much agree with you on that. And I also really appreciate that you have been able to combine not only your passion, but also your skills and what you do really well in this world. And so tell us a little bit more about the role that you have there at the Cat Island Conservation Institute that you founded. That's very impressive. I'd love to hear more about that.
Awesome. Thank you. So the Cat Island Conservation Institute was established immediately after Hurricane Dorian. And it was this moment of clarity for me when I realized that Bahamians and people living on these islands that are literally being swallowed by the sea, we need to be the ones driving and setting the pace internationally when it comes to what climate action looks like. Simply because right now the global community has agreed, based on their commitments, their national commitments to reduce global greenhouse gas emissions. We're looking at a 3.2 degrees Celsius temperature rise. And for communities like mine, right now we're underwater. And unless the world limits our global temperature rise to no more than 1.5 degrees Celsius, more Bahamians and more Caribbean islanders are going to be literally washed into the ocean. It's happened before, and it will happen again if we don't change our ways. And more Caribbean islanders, people from small island states, are going to be climate refugees. It's happened last year. It's going to happen again. It's really, really important now that we take climate action seriously. And how I do that with my community, with the incredible team that I work with the Cat Island Conservation Institute, is engaging community members in strategically designed citizen science programs intended to improve our understanding, the information that we're gathering, so that we really understand where we are and how then can we make evidence-based, evidence-driven decisions to improve our ability to adapt and to survive and thrive on these islands. And that requires a very interconnected approach to sustainable development. And so it's very interesting work, because it's everything that I do is, on the ground in my community. There's only about 1,000 of us who live on this island, which is about 50 miles long. So very, very small community, and working with people from very different, diverse backgrounds in introducing and talking about different concepts as it relates to climate change, but talking about it in a language that's relevant, so that's not polar bears, which is an issue and also is very far removed for someone who's on a tiny island in the middle of the Atlantic.
Right, 1,000%. And that's a lot of times what we find is such a big challenge in communicating climate change. One is establishing the urgency, and two is making it relevant. So how is it affecting me? Mm-hmm. And we're here in South Florida. We see a lot of real evidence of climate change. We have a lot of issues with flooding. Sea level rise happens really quickly here. We have the Gulf Stream that's slowing down because of warming water temperatures that's impacting our flooding areas. So we see it very predominantly here in South Florida. Mm-hmm. What has been some of the things that you all have seen there in Cat Islands?
Well, we're having a lot of flooding. It's been so the Bahamas is an archipelago, so we've got many different islands. My parents live in New Providence, and I have been waking up to phone calls from my mom in sort of like sheer panic, because the flooding has just been like just standing water has just been growing closer and closer and closer to her home, you know, and they're trying to figure out how do they deal with that. And so what's just so, I think it's just becoming so real for people. You know, the other day there was a video circulating around social media where someone had caught a shark that was on the road because high tide had come in. And so, you know, that area was close to a mangrove creek. And so the shark came in. It's just the realities of what the lived realities, you know, and then also you think about now in time of COVID-19 and in Caribbean islands like the Bahamas, our entire economy was based on tourism. And so we were trying to recover from Hurricane Dorian. 7 months later, the world paused. And, you know, that's about 80% of our workforce unemployed. And so our government now and the civil society and the private sector are really diving in to try and understand how do we navigate out of this. And this is where a lot of my work is now coming in, really taking a national development lens and looking at how do we tap into the ocean economy? Because, you know, the next decade is the UN decade of the ocean. And I think for small island nations like the Bahamas, this is a critical opportunity for us to connect with, you know, the genius. I participated in an ocean technology conference earlier this year. I spoke on a panel, and it was just so fascinating to hear where the advances are with exploring our oceans, with understanding our ocean, with conservation, and how really what needs to happen is the technology needs to be connected to the local communities. And so now I think, you know, from an economic perspective, from an economic diversification perspective, small island nations like the Bahamas we can really position ourselves to be leaders and to help use this opportunity as diving into education and ocean exploration to help bridge some of these major gaps that we have when it comes to education, when it comes to a lot of our social challenges. You know, communities like mine struggle. You know, the Bahamas is a very, very challenged education system. And you know, our education system has been training people for the service industry. And so it has created this bit of a hump where how do we then ensure that people have skills so they can be transferred into new and emerging industries? And I think this is where the ocean dynamic, you know, I'm working on a project right now called Island University, Island U, which is a reimagining of what the university looks like, and really working with community members and researchers and students from traditional universities in studying in real time. So right now the specific project is looking at improving the hydrometric data network. So literally understanding, what does flooding look like? What does water security look like? What does predicting major climatic events look like? How do we ensure that we're collecting that information? It's like rain gauges. It's something so simple, you know, rain gauges through Citizen Science rain gauge program. But with island nations, because there's so many challenges, a citizen science program like CoCoRaHS that is so just sort of like commonplace every day in the United States requires a lot more parts and sort of barriers to be addressed in order for it to function here, because of just, you know, science isn't an everyday thing. You know, it's a bit bizarre. I'm 33 and of sort of like the first wave of Bahamians with masters and PhDs in, you know, conservation marine sciences. So we're a very young country, and I think there's so many opportunities for us there.
It's so well put, and especially when you are talking about an island nation, I mean, water is the immediate threat. It is ever present. Mm-hmm. And how do you create those alternative livelihoods when we are looking at some major gaps in the income and the economy there? And this term blue economy is maybe new to some folks, but basically it describes businesses that are all around creating business and economic opportunities that promote ocean health, in addition to growing the local economy. And that's something I'm super interested in too, here in Florida. Even, you know, we are a peninsula, and yet we still also see that that disconnect to our waterways, even though we are seeing real changes in the climate and with sea level rise and all. A big thing that you have also been really involved in that I'm really interested to learn more about is how climate change really impacts these marginalized communities, or what we've been also calling, was it intersectional environmentalism? Explain a little bit about what that means and how it also impacts you all there.
So I speak a lot these days about climate justice. And I think at the heart of that, you can talk about intersectional environmentalism. But the reality is that every single person on this planet has been born into a specific time and place. Based on where we were born, that shapes the way that we view the world, that we engage, what we think is normal. And what has happened is that the history of the world, there's been a lot of oppression. You know, the society that we, especially us in this Western society right now, you know, this was created based on stolen land and stolen people. And now 400 years later, here we are, but we have to acknowledge what has happened and how the past impacts where we're going. And so in the United States and around the world, there's just been extreme tension. You know, you guys in the United States, you guys just had an election, the world was watching. And at the root of that, a lot of it had to do with worthiness, right? Because when we talk about, as a Black person who has lived in the United States, studied in the United States, runs a US-based organization, I'm very aware of the pain, the conflict, the injustice that exists. And we cannot separate whether you are in Ethiopia, in Cat Island, the Bahamas, or in the United States. You know, at the end of the day, we're dealing with individual people who have hearts and who view the world with a certain lens. And in order for us to truly achieve climate solutions and put in place climate solutions, you and I have to be able to look at each other, and we have to be able to understand that we come from very diverse backgrounds with different lived experiences. And I need to, and you need to, develop the self-awareness to be able to understand, in this encounter, am I coming from a position of privilege? Have I had experiences, lived experiences, realities that has shaped the way that I view the world that may be different from this person that I'm talking to? Because this is at the heart of our climate solutions. Because the entire Caribbean, the entire 32, 36 small island nations of the world, we are dependent on the global north to get their act together and limit their greenhouse gas emissions. We can do everything on our side, but we can't do it alone. And so we have to do it together. And this means you have to understand my reality. You know, I was at this ocean conference that I was at. There was I don't know who it was. It's so interesting because when you're virtual, you don't really see people. Mm-hmm. But someone asked, how do you talk about climate change in a way that it's not so annoying? You know, and it was just such like a punch in the gut. Because I'm here talking about, like, my people are trying to survive. You know, us islanders are literally trying to survive. And people in the United States somewhere or elsewhere in the world, you know, think that my survival is annoying, or conversations about that. And I think this is where we have to break these conversations down. And I think our solution, how we move forward, and this is why I talk so much about ocean love, because we need to learn how to love ourselves. Because when we love ourselves and when we can be loving with ourselves, it enables us to be loving with others. It enables us to take a moment, a pause, to realize that, wait, I'm not the only person in this world. And it's my responsibility as someone who's sharing this planet that, I mean, think about how old the world. And so So yeah, those are a little bit of my thoughts.
Yeah, it's so incredibly important what you're saying. And it's not even to be like hippy dippy. I'm sure maybe people are thinking, oh, we're so hippy dippy, like love fest over here. But this is really the truth beyond it. You know, is we have an audience member here who's like, no way people think that.
And
but you know,
it's interesting that you say hippy dippy, because scientists, right? We spend so much time in our brains, and we get so uncomfortable when we start talking about emotions and feelings, because we have been brainwashed, if you will, or our educational upbringing has programmed us to see the world a certain way. The challenge is all the scientists in the world, we can all sit together in a room and know all the knowledge about the climate change, but it's not going to solve the problem. We need the world to collectively do this together. And in order to do that, that means we need to connect to people. And I don't think scientists have done a very good job in the past of connecting and telling the story of what's going on. And I think so much of the climate change narrative has been very negative. And so now, you know, how I'm showing up and how I'm talking about it, it's climate solutions, and it's economic opportunities, and it's social enterprise. And it's like the most beautiful future for us, because we're going to have people in our island laboratories leading science hand in hand with someone who maybe didn't graduate from high school. But just because they didn't graduate from high school, they don't have that master's or PhD, we still need them to be part of the conversation and part of the solution. And so it's our responsibility to connect with people in a way that we can connect with them, that's meaningful. And the only way you can do that is with genuine, heartfelt connections.
it's absolutely, you know, a lot of times when I speak to scientists, I hear them talk about the value of coral reefs, for instance. There's either the economic value or the ecological value of coral reefs. And that's where it stops. But the reality is, and we see this in the Blue Mind movement and the Blue Mind book written by Dr. Wallace J. Nichols, he speaks very much about the emotional value of clean waterways. And we all have had those moments of connection with water, and we don't have that same emotional attachment to water when it's filthy and polluted. Mm-hmm. And so it really does go to show how much clean, healthy waterways really does impact our emotional well-being, and that should also be part of the conversation and part of the consideration. And another thing that you had mentioned there was that all of our voices matter, and especially when we're talking about STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, and math, that workforce, because the more diverse we can make these sectors, the more experience and background we will gain from that. And that from there just comes more innovation, because now we're being very creative in our problem solving, because people from different backgrounds are bringing their different experiences to the table and able to problem solve in a very different way and see these issues from a very different perspective. And that is what is going to drive innovation. And so you're 1,000% right that scientists really need to come out of their ivory towers and really connect with the people who are experiencing climate change, for instance, and come up with solutions together based on what their needs are. And it sounds like you're doing all of that there at that Conservation Institute.
Yes, we are. And it's, I think where the challenge lies now is that it's about meaningful relationships. So when academia, because there is a role and a place for academia, right? That rigor and that ability to focus and dive and objectively study and analyze something is critically important. And this is why I do a lot of work with open science and through UNESCO. I'm a UNESCO partner. And for small island nations, in order for us to truly address the challenges with our climate and to create these climate solutions, we need to be able to make data-driven decisions, right? There needs to be evidence-based, because right now more than ever, adaptive management is required. And the challenge is that in so many countries like the Bahamas, we're data deficient, or where there is information, it's not actually owned by Bahamians or Bahamian institutions. So we don't really get the full picture. And when you have primarily external lenses are the eyes that are viewing, doing the interpretation. There's a lot of nuances. There's a lot of local knowledge, indigenous knowledge that's not being taken into consideration. And right now in the Bahamas, we are experiencing a bit of a human wildlife conflict between our fishers and sharks, and then also just like the fishers who are wanting to harvest conch, but then are speaking to challenges with turtle populations. And there was a call, the Bahamas is a shark sanctuary, and there was a call the other day to remove that and to lift the protection order. And it's just, we're seeing now more than ever, because Bahamians, fishers, the people who depend on the natural resources the most have not been actively involved in understanding what's going on in the ocean, that there is this big disconnect that's happening. And then it goes back to the haves and the have-nots, if you will, because a lot of conservation has been a very white space, a very privileged space. And I acknowledge full on the privileges that I have of the education that I've received, how I've traveled the world. Privilege manifests itself in very different ways. But now we have to be very intentional about, I think when we talk about sustainable development, about climate justice, because an aspect of climate justice is ensuring healthy and sustainable natural resource management, where humans are living in harmony with nature. And that means that we have to be able to address these human wildlife conflicts, but do that in a way that is inclusive, that is done hand in hand with the people who are experiencing the conflict, and then co-create solutions together.
Yeah, 1,000%. And that was something that I learned very early on when I was getting into conservation, was that conservation will only work when you have the support of the stakeholders, and that comes from involvement, and for them to also be able to contribute their voice to the solution. So I love that aspect about conservation. It's not just about the wildlife. Now, switching over, you had also talked about the mindfulness piece of water, and you are actually going to be speaking at a conference, the Mindful Conservation Conference, right? Talk about this. This is, before you do, I stumbled upon this maybe days after getting a chance to speak with you or getting to know you. And then I noticed that you were actually a speaker, and I was so excited. Like, oh my gosh, I found out about this conference, and we already set up the interview, and I saw you were going to be a speaker. So as the world works, right?
Oh, I love it. So I am so excited. Absolutely Smashing Events is putting on the first Mindful Conservation Conference, and it's just going to be this incredible, beautiful experience for a 4-day period. I have a couple of sessions that I'm hosting. The main workshop is Ocean Love for Climate Justice and Conservation, and really it's diving into what I've realized is that successful conservation, my ability to show up and be my best self in doing my work, requires for me to be taking care of myself. And that energy that we all feel when you spend time with the ocean, it's just a moment of calm, a pause, a relief, believe that in order for us to bring about the just world filled with climate solutions, where we have incredible conservation projects, humans living in harmony with nature, this requires us to be in a state of calm, because we're working to solve extraordinarily challenging problems. This is the challenge of our generation. And we need our leaders, the people who are, whether you're doing the science or you're advocating for us, or you're in the law, whatever spectrum, wherever you fall in the spectrum, we need you to be showing up in your best self, because that's the only way that you are going to be able to channel your brilliance into the work, the gift that you are providing for us. And a big part of that is learning about self-awareness, learning about how do we better communicate, how can we become better listeners, you know, and then also connecting with our body, with the moment. So it's going to be a very dynamic workshop of learning some skills, but also it's a little bit of yoga, some sort of dance or movement, however the ocean speaks to you. And of course, conversations about what does climate justice and conservation look like for the next decade? Where are we going, and how do we show up in our authenticity and, you know, help to be part of this wave, creating this change, you know, collectively together. So that's one workshop. And then I'm also hosting a painting series where it's really about tapping into what is your motivation for conservation. Why do you show up? Why do you do this work? Because conservation is a heartfelt, you know, we do this because we love the ocean, nature. There's something that speaks to us on a level that's so much beyond our mental understanding of the world. And being able to sort of flow with that in a fun space, think like Bob Ross meets ocean magic and conservation. It'll just be a paint session. So everyone will have paint and we'll be talking and just having some fun, you know, zero judgment, all love, all fun. Yeah. So
that's so great. I'm so looking forward to that. Remind us of the date of that.
I think it's January 4th. It's the very beginning of January. So it will enable you to start your year off, you know, really focused, connected to the ocean and thinking about where are you going in this next year and how are you flowing through. You know, we saw 2020 has been a year, and I think what we have to learn is how do we learn to flow with the waves? How do we surf the waves? You know, don't get caught and don't get drowned by the waves, but by developing certain practices and by developing mindfulness, it helps us navigate the tsunamis and the Cat 5 hurricanes, and then also just enjoy the flat calm seas because they're also there.
They are also there. That's right. And we'll make sure we put that information about that conference here in the comments section so you all can also register and see Nikita Eagle Ray Empress speak during that conference and participate with her. You know, I just have one final question for you before we wrap this up. You've alluded to it already, but at the end of the day, what matters to you?
What matters to me? What matters to me is inner peace. It's that wave of calm that just goes over my body when I'm in connection with the ocean. It's that essence that I hold with me every day as I'm in the office or wherever. But what matters for me is the calm, because when I'm calm, when I'm in love with myself, I can then be loving to others and share so much of my magic, of the ocean magic, because I think this life is supposed to be pleasurable and joyful. And there's challenges, and I think there are ways that we can learn to live in love while celebrating the magic of life.
Beautiful. So well said. I so appreciate you, Nikita, and all of the work that you're doing. You are truly a wave maker in this world. And so I'm so thankful that we have this opportunity to learn more about your work, get to know you. And I would love for you to share ways for people to support the work that you're doing, learn more about the organizations that you founded, that you're running.
Absolutely. This is incredible. So please, if you want to take and support meaningful climate action, climate justice, you can go and make a donation to Young Marine Explorers on our website, ymebahamas.org. There's all the options there to pay online and to make a monthly. If you wanted to become a monthly donor, that would be incredible. And it's fantastic because all contributions directly support conservation action in both local communities, but then also on a policy level. So your donations carry huge weight. Also, if you are in this pandemic and you're thinking about relocating and you're looking for a piece of paradise that you want to call home and you want to become a guardian of planet ocean with me, please reach out. I am working with HG Christie and Christie's International, and we have some incredible, oh look, we have a friend here. We have some incredible ocean sanctuaries on island that you can, a lot of people are working remotely now and looking for space where they can, engage and raise their children and closer to nature. And so Cat Island is the paradise to do that in. And of course, if you are interested in exploring ocean love and wellness and art, definitely visit Cat Island Mermaid. That is my science communication and conservation wellness website. And I would love to connect with you and to see how I can share some love. And one of the offerings that I have coming up actually is conservation wellness ocean love for businesses who want to see how can they move towards creating a more loving, a more climate positive, climate solution space within their corporate spaces, wherever they fall within the various industries. Because all of us now have to be thinking about how do we play our part, whether that's how we spend our money, who we vote for, what charities we support. Everything matters right now. And it's 1.5 to stay alive. And I really am asking you to work with me, bring together our international global community, because we must limit global temperature rise by no more than 1.5 degrees, because literally our lives depend on it. And we need you to do it with us.
1,000% right. And if you all want to create a ripple of change for a better, bluer tomorrow, Nikita has given you several ways that you can help out. And so we'll make sure we post all of those resources for you down below. And that way you too can join us and be a wave maker, because we're not going to do this by ourselves. And it'll be a lot more fun when we do it together.
I love it.
Well, Nikita, thank you again so much for your time, for joining us. I'm happy your cat was able to finally join us here at the end. It's been a true pleasure getting to know you, and I so look forward to getting to know you more and working with you more here in the future. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.